Could we have the Sederunt and apologies for the pension subcommittee?
Thank you, Chairman. I've just got apologies from Councillor Nicholl for today.
And could we have the Sederunt apologies for the pension board?
Apologies from George Hurst and currently 4 pension board members present.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's also apologies, Chair, from David Steinthorpe and Sheila Smith.
Okay. Any declarations of interest from the pension subcommittee? No. Any declarations from the pensions board? No. Got the minute of the pension subcommittee for 27th of August. That's for noting. Any questions? No. Minute of the pension board 27th of August for approval. Happy with that? David, are you? Yeah. And pension board 27th of August at 10:30 a.m. David, are you happy with that? Well, you weren't there. Okay. Thank you. Hey. Okay, item 8, Local Government Pension Scheme Recent Developments, report by Head of Finance and Procurement. Paul? Andrew?
Yeah. The reason for this paper is basically to let members of the committee and the board make them aware of a couple of developments which are happening. One which will affect us and one which may affect us. The regulations regarding MiFID, the markets and financial instruments, it's a change in European legislation which will be coming into effect in January 2017. The regulations as they stand at present mean that local authority pension funds are classed as professional investors. That is, they should know what they're doing, and so there's less cover as opposed to a retail investor, which is your man in the street. But to enable the funds to retain their professional investor status, they will be required to show certain levels of competence. The actual regulations and what will be required, it hasn't been defined yet. Basically, this is just a case of bringing this to the members' attention. There may be things coming up regarding a level of training, etc. So we'll address these things as and when we know how. I've spoken to 2 or 3 of the managers. They, obviously, it's in their interest for us to remain as a professional investor. There have been a couple of articles in trade journals, etc., which have went over the top saying that all the pension funds will be forced to sell all their investments at the one time because of this, and they won't meet this, and there'll be a big fire sale and everything. But the response I'm getting from managers is they can't see that happening, but they'll keep us informed what's going on, what's required, etc. And that will be brought to the attention of the committee. I don't know if Alison wants to.
Yeah, I mean, all that I have to add, I'm not going to baffle you with science, but all I would say is that we have, Linda Selman, who's head of LGPS in Hymans, has been liaising with the Investment Association, and we are confident that they are wanting a calm approach and a positive outcome, and there is, as Andrew has said, some scaremongering in the press that there's going to be a lot of onus put on local authority funds to comply. The criteria that you have had to comply with for the current MiFID I rules will be similar for MiFID II. So we are in consultation with all the regulatory, or the FCA, Investment Association. So it's something to keep a watching brief on, but we are encouraging a calm approach, and we think that you should take confidence from that as well. We're not worried by it, but it's something that can be worked through.
Thanks, Chair. It's just paragraph 3.6 where it's talking about pooling government LGPSs pool their investments, that could lead to, and does that mean that various councils come together and that sort of thing, and we lose our control over our own pension scheme?
Well, that's the second part of the paper. I haven't really come on to that yet. The pooling arrangements which have been put forward relate, this is the one which may affect us as opposed to the first one which will affect us. These arrangements, in the Chancellor's statement in July, he brought forward this proposal that he felt that the LGPS funds in England and Wales, there was too much fees involved, too much cost involved in running the system, and I think the background is that he felt that they weren't putting enough into infrastructure investments. I think there's a sort of hidden agenda in there somewhere. They're wanting pension funds to put money in rather than somebody. I think it's a cheap source of funds. So there was proposals put forward, and there was actually, in the following from yesterday's statement, there's a move, I think there's about 6, the aim is for 6 big funds which look after any investments which can be pooled. I mean, they want to incorporate all investments, but where investments can be pooled, then they're looking for like 6 big £25 billion funds to manage these things. The reason that I'm bringing it to the attention of the committee is that Scotland tends to be a year behind England and Wales when it comes to pension matters. It's a devolved issue, and also the fact that our valuation cycle is a year behind and the legislation tends to be a year behind, etc., etc. There are no official plans yet for this to come into force in Scotland, but it may. And again, I think if there is, the reasoning behind it will be to try and ensure that the local pension funds in Scotland have a significant investment in infrastructure. So there may be things set up to say that you've got to put so much money into a certain pool which is run, but as yet there's nothing. But it's a possibility. Alison,
I'll can add a wee bit more to that. At the beginning of October, yes, as Andrew said, the Chancellor sort of said we've got 89 different local government. This is only, at the minute, this is only England and Wales. It doesn't apply to Scotland, as Andrew said, but you know they watch what's going on and a year behind, etc. So at the minute, anything that the Chancellor is talking about is applying only to England and Wales, and he's saying we have 89, or paraphrasing what he said, we have 89 different local government pension funds with 89 sets of fees and costs. So there are 2 angles to his proposals. One is to look at infrastructure and look at using some of the pension fund assets to invest in infrastructure, and also looking at costs and fees. Infrastructure can be an attractive investment for a pension fund because it has characteristics that are attractive. It's got long-term, stable cash flows that are coming in and are often inflation-linked. So from a pension fund matching perspective, that is an attractive potential asset. And there are some LGPS funds which do invest in infrastructure, but the statistics are around that only about 1% of the total LGPS funds in England and Wales invest in infrastructure. And actually there is a perception that the UK is much lower than global pension funds, but actually it's about the same number. But from a Hyman Robertson's perspective and from a Dumfries and Galloway perspective, I want you to be confident that we are part of a working party, taking input from lots of funds. Now we are big in LGPS from a market share perspective. We've got lots of clients that are local LGPS, but we've also got clients involved in the discussions that are not our clients, but have a vested interest and want to know what's going on. So we are on top of things, we are watching what's going on, but at the minute it's only England and Wales, but obviously Scotland watch very closely what's going on.
Any questions? Stephen?
Thank you. It's actually just on the MIF MiFID II. Just from reading 3.2 there, it's basically saying that by January 2017 will be defaulted to retail client status as a local authority, with the opportunity to elect for professional client status, which we currently are at the moment. So we're not. Oh, okay.
With the MiFID thing, the new regulation comes into effect from January 2017. The authority will have to elect before that to become to ensure that it retains professional status, because that's when the regulation comes into effect. So it'll be probably towards the end of 2016 when the authority would have to elect to become to retain its professional investor status. But we're still waiting on what the criteria are for each individual manager will have its own criteria to determine who is and who isn't for professional status. But they require the regulation to be published first before they can determine what they require. And like I say, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But the responses I've had so far from managers is that they intend to keep the LGPS schemes as professional investors. And so they'll assist in meeting their criteria.
Very, very quickly to add to that, I mean, what is in this paper is there is still, the general opinion is that local authorities will be defaulted to retail, and that was our understanding. We had an update, or I had an update from Linda Selman yesterday, obviously prior to coming to this meeting, and there is still further debate as to whether it's going to be an automatic default into retail. I haven't shared that with you, Andrew, because that was just yesterday. So there's still ongoing debate as to whether you will automatically default to be retail, whether you will retain professional and then go to retail and have to resubmit. It's an ongoing process.
I think really the assurance I suppose I was seeking was that if there is any change in status, given that it's saying there that, well, this might actually, during that period, if you're a retail client, that might limit what type of investments are on offer for you, would that, or could that put at risk current investments we have because they might fall into that category of investments that are applicable to that status? So if there's a break in our professional status, does that put a hiatus on the type of investments we currently have, which we may not otherwise be able to have, if you see what I mean?
That's the worst case scenario. So your thinking and your analysis is correct. If you default, if local authorities were to default to retail status, then managers have different rules and for dealing with retail as opposed to professional, which you currently are. They are very aware of that. The worst, there has been a lot of scaremongering. So the worst case scenario is that there is a much reduced pool of assets and your managers may say, I'm sorry, as a retail investor, we can't invest with you anymore. That is the worst case scenario, but everyone, including all the managers, the consultants, the Investment Association, the FCA, are working together to ensure that that worst case scenario doesn't happen. But yes, I mean, and there has been some stuff in the press talking about that, you know, and we at Hyman Robertson would view that as scaremongering. But yes, your thought process is correct.
Just to finally follow up, so in terms of, would it be this pension committee effectively and board would have to demonstrate to Hyman Robertson, or would Hyman Robertson have to demonstrate to the fund managers, if you like? So where does that responsibility lie?
The responsibility will lie with the committee. I've had a couple of responses from managers. The one from Franklin Templeton, who said that once the criteria has been established, etc., they will be contacting all their clients, advising what they would require of the client to retain professional status, and for the client to sign off a paper saying that they meet that criteria. The other response I got was from Bailey Gifford, actually, just during the week, who are coming in later on. Chris Murphy circulated something. So, I mean, he might be in a better position to say what Bailey Gifford's view on this is going forward. But it is the client's responsibility, they've got to meet each manager's criteria. I mean, some of them might have different aspects that they're looking for. So the fact that you meet Franklin Templeton's criteria, you might not meet Bailey Gifford, for example. But I think that they will be working to try and keep it as sensible as possible.
Any other questions?
It's maybe you can't answer this, but this is European legislation, okay, and we're looking at how it might affect the UK. But across Europe, local democracy is slightly structured differently, so there wouldn't be big pension funds per se in a lot of the European countries. I just wondered, you know, how this affects the rest of Europe as compared. We could easily look at the UK because we have a history of that, but across the water, what's I don't know. Maybe you can answer it. I don't know, Andy.
It's not something I can answer, but it's not just aimed at pension funds. It's aimed at any investment companies. They've all got to be able to show. I think the legislation is to do with showing that managers, etc. My understanding of it, they're trying to make sure that the managers are acting correctly, and in doing that, they're making sure that the managers are not influencing investor decisions, so that the investor has then got to show that they are in a position to understand what they're doing. So it's a manager. They're trying to catch the managers basically, but it comes back down to the investors.
So we're just a consequence of the legislation. Yeah.
Okay. I think the second one, that kind of worried me when I heard the budget announcement earlier on in the year, but there's not very much flesh on it so far. I think in Scotland, because you've only got 8 or 9 pension funds, would any savings, particularly for us, be all that great in any case? And in terms of infrastructure investment, there's very, very little scope there. I mean, there's a lot of investment needed in local government, for instance, but you couldn't do it because of the council tax freeze. We haven't got revenue to pay for infrastructure investment, so it limits. I couldn't see it applying in Scotland because we're constricted. You'd have to lift the council tax freeze in order to get any meaningful infrastructure investment. So I don't think this is one to worry about too much at the moment, anyway. As far as I'm concerned.
I don't think it's just bringing it to attention. One of the things that may happen with the Scotland pooling thing is that there'll be a Scottish pooled vehicle set up wherever, and like I say, if there's a requirement to make a 5% investment in infrastructure or something, that we'd have to put so much money into this vehicle to show that we're complying with the requirements.
Yeah, the problem there is if you've got an infrastructure vehicle, it'll probably be providing roads in the Highlands somewhere, whereas we probably rather invest it in building schools or whatever else in Dumfries. But we're limited because of the council tax freeze. We can't do anything. So. Anyway, moving on. Item 9. Oh yeah. Can we accept the recommendations as laid out in the report? Thank you very much. Item 9, I've no other urgent business. Item 10, we'll adopt the resolution to exclude the public in terms of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973.